Welcome to Building El Salvador.
We got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about all types of things. This feels like our first official show, doesn't it?
I guess. It still doesn't feel like an official show, but I suppose it never will.
So we're going to talk about how we got here, a little bit of how we got here.
We're live from San Salvador, everyone. We're here in El Salvador. We've made the move. We've rented the houses. We're building a studio. We are building in El Salvador in all the ways.
That's right. And we're going to talk about what our objectives are over here. Just how far we've gotten along in the process, talk about some of the challenges we faced, and a little bit about our show, what we plan for it to evolve into, and what our audience can expect. And then we're going to talk about the transition over here, the full transition over here, the whole process of moving to El Salvador, the different stages that I had to go through, as well as Jordan, and talk about what someone can expect if they're making a journey over here. Some people just jumped the ship. They just came here like
young Matt.
Young Matt didn't even check out the country. But for other people, I imagine it's going to be a process. And so we're going to talk about what that process was for me, and I think for you as well, Jordan.
Yeah, it's definitely, it depends on your situation. Me, I have a wife and kids, and it wasn't as simple to just like pack up and leave. So I took, 3 trips here before? I think it was 3, but I think you took like 5.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, I'd have taken 7 trips over here. Now I'm in Miami. It's a lot easier for me.
Easy flight
Flight from Miami. So, but we'll get into that. First, let's give an update as far as where we're at with Sovereignty Studios and building El Salvador. So first of all, what was our objective coming here and working together, Jordan?
Yeah, well, that's what's also cool about like all those trips I came here that I took here before officially moving. I met you here. Mm-hmm. And we hung out, we worked together, and we kind of had a plan. I mean, our first trip, we just got to know each other, but we were still doing stuff. We were making content, doing interviews with people. And that first trip is where we learned that the real story here is not about Bitcoin. It's about what's actually happening for the people that live here, for like the real Salvadorian culture, that they can go outside again, that they're safe, that there's just this air of hope and optimism in the world. So I know, if I speak for maybe both of us when I say we came here thinking it's Bitcoin land, Bitcoin, when really that's just like a small variable, small element of what's going on.
That's right.
Yeah. So, so each trip we were here and we were doing stuff. Then my second trip here, we did the Bitcoin halving party. We made a ton of content. Those 2 weeks, we started looking at houses and we started really seeing what's it going to take to live here.
That's right. And yeah, well, should we get into that later? And when we talk about all the stages, should we talk about just kind of an update of where we're at right now as far as our objectives for Sovereignty Studios, what we want this to evolve into, how we're positioning ourselves? You want to get into that?
Yeah, well, my point is that's how we got here. It took all those trips. I think anyone that wants to build in El Salvador, it helps to come at least once before and get your feet wet, start networking, start seeing what you want to do here, start seeing the value you can provide. And that's what led us here. As we see, like here we are, a lot of people want to come essentially do what we're doing just in their own form. So that is a lot of what Sovereignty Studios wants to offer. What we want to start portraying in this show is that yes, you can do it. And we're going to share our experiences, challenges, everything we're going through to get it done, because there's a lot involved.
Yeah. So I guess for me, one of the things I realized when we first came down here was that we work well together when we're in close proximity, right? When we're under the same roof. We had been working remotely. You had been helping me with my video coaching, and we were just kind of involved in different projects that we were doing. But there's a latency when you're working remotely with someone, especially when they're in different time zones. And so when we both were here, we got so much work done that I was like, oh, wait, this could turn into something if, we're both here in El Salvador. And that idea started to transpire as we continued to work together as the days went on, right? I didn't think that at first, but then as we started getting work done, I was like, man, we could do amazing things if we work under the same roof. So the conversation to move to El Salvador and to build to El Salvador started transpiring then, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like people move here to get shit done. People move here to build.
Yeah.
Like people are coming here to do things. And, you know, let's face it. Do we find a lot of that in the United States? Do we find a lot of that elsewhere? Is there's just kind of a lot of, well, for better or for worse, there's no judgment, just like people doing their thing. But the people coming here are focused. Like, let's get something done.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I talk to everyone that's here, not everyone, but a lot of people, the first thing they tell you is that El Salvador is a land of opportunity, you know, because it just feels like this is a place where you can bring your hopes and dreams and make them into a reality. In a lot of ways, I feel like the free market is alive and well here, you know, and if, you know, you have a specific niche, you can definitely carve out a path for you here, I think a lot easier than in different parts of the world, for instance.
Definitely. It makes me wonder what it could have been like couple hundred years ago moving to the United States. Those times, right? Leaving a country that's oppressing, something about it is oppressing you in some way. So, you know, like, hey, I can accomplish my dreams, even if the dreams are simple. Like, hey, I just want to make a good living for my family and have a chill life, which is essentially my dream right now. Like, I've been with my family in multiple locations on different continents at this point, and I'm like, man, forget the crazy ambitions. I just want to have a comfortable life, make a decent living, and be somewhere where I can feel essentially safe and secure, and that my children have a future.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern for a lot of people, right? They're looking at the trajectory of their country. For instance, young Matt, I posted basically an intro to Matias over here and his journey to El Salvador. And one of the things that young Matt was talking about was that he was looking at you know, the trajectory that Europe was on, and was like, hey, you know what? I want a more brighter and prosperous future, and found himself on his way here to El Salvador.
Yeah, and that's an example of just taking the one-way route. I mean, Estonia is a lot farther to, you know, taking 6 trips is going to be a bit of a different situation than even coming from LA, where I was like 5 hours, which, you know, feels like a lot. But how long was your flight, Matt? Is your audio on?
Yeah. My flight, the trip in total was 17 hours, and flight from Madrid to San Salvador 11 hours.
Yeah, that's not.
I didn't want to take a bunch of back and forth trips.
Yeah,
all that ticket fares.
Yeah, so it helps to essentially do research. It helps to get connected beforehand, which is, once again, back to the purpose of what we're trying to do here is essentially create opportunities like that.
Well, yeah, and it goes into a little bit of what we're offering as well, right? We understand that the journey and the transition is hard, especially when you're coming from across the world. And a lot of people we've talked to a lot of people who have made that trek, but what we want to do is also, you know, provide a fast track for that, you know, almost like an accelerator to building your life here in El Salvador.
14-day Building El Salvador accelerator, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sovereignty Studios then. So originally we were planning on getting this kind of lavish headquarters, right?
Yeah. The first house we saw for rent was like this beautiful mansion, modern, great view. We thought, wow, this could be a cool headquarters.
And it would have been a good headquarters, but it was the first house we saw. Yeah. And so we said, you know what? If this is the first house we see, imagine what all the other houses are going to look like. But it turned out that probably would have been the best bet for a, you know, like a nice headquarters with a wow factor attached to it. And
the wow factor.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because by the time we finally decided, like, yeah, that's the one, it was no longer available. Yep. And we thought, oh, it got rented out. Dang it. You know, and then we learned from a different source that the owner just decided not to rent it out.
Yeah.
So we don't feel too bad about it.
Sure. But we ended up opting in for a more, I guess, modest approach, or a simpler approach to, you know, launching our headquarters and basically starting small and scaling up from there, right?
Here we are.
Yeah, and so Jordan and I, we got rental units on the same street, and one of the things about that I realized is that it's really helpful, especially when you're at the beginning stages of building anything, to be near your partner. That way, if something comes up, or you want an impromptu meeting, or there's a conversation that needs to be had, you're accessible, and vice versa.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm someone that just hates driving. Like, I don't want my daily routine to have driving in it. And so, like, that was something I was just going to sacrifice when we were looking at all the nice big houses. But then when this finally became a situation, it suddenly felt right. Like, oh, great. I can just take a 1-minute walk to work.
Sure, yeah. And you just want as little friction as possible, especially with starting out, because there's so many challenges that you're facing. And so the less friction that you can create for yourself, I mean, just the easier it is to use the willpower to get stuff done that needs to get done.
And along those notes, perhaps it's a good time to mention, like, driving in San Salvador here, and we're just in the south, right? We're not even in San Salvador. It is just it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
It's not just like driving through, a calm town or whatever. It's like traffic, weird ways of navigating. You have to do U-turns. You miss a turn and you're kind of screwed for like 10 minutes. So it's not like it's definitely takes energy out of you to drive here. So something to keep in mind at a foundational level.
Yeah, and then think about it. So we're both here and we're in the same vicinity and we're working under the same roof. So if there's a question or if there's a concern, right, it gets addressed right away. But it's also very, it definitely has that startup feel where it's like we're all under the same, in the same roof, in the same vicinity. And, there's an element there that you actually feel like you're building, like you're collaborating with people as well.
Yeah, especially with young Matt entering the picture, which was not part of our initial plan. We didn't think that would happen so soon, but it happened, hit the ground running. Yeah. And now there's 3 of us in here working towards our goals every day, and it's really cool. I've never done this before.
Yeah, so young Matt was saying the other day, he was commenting on this kind of feel, this atmosphere, right, that's developing here. He was saying that he had, if it wasn't for this atmosphere, he doesn't know if he'd be working as much as he has or getting as much done, right? When you feel other people working and we're all working towards something together, right, it's very invigorating and motivating. So it's like, even myself, we can work 10, 12-hour days and it doesn't feel like it, as opposed to like, each doing their own individual thing.
Yeah, exactly. And when you are doing your own individual thing to make ends meet or whatever, especially when you're traveling, which was kind of like what your plan would have been, Matt, it almost sometimes you feel like there's more of a sense of urgency to see things, to go all around. But when you're just here and you can kind of jump into and I say this because my whole mindset on this has shifted over the years from back when I was a nomad to now, like, oh, I'm in a new location. Cool. I'm just here and I'm here to build something greater than myself. And that is my goal. But then the backdrop is this new place, new culture, new things to experience. And that happens with time because there's no rush.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, oh, I'm traveling through and then I'm going to go to another country, this and that, but I'm also trying to work so I can make ends meet, then you got 2 main focuses going on, which is taking advantage of being in a new place and seeing it, experiencing it, but then also like working on whatever you're working on. So when you actually come somewhere and you're like, okay, I'm settling down for a while, you can tick all the boxes eventually, but you can still focus your creative energy on building something, which I think is who we as humans, like what we want to do more than anything is create.
Yeah. So that's a good point, right? You can very much transition into a life over here with a little bit more ease, because the idea of traveling and taking in all the sights of El Salvador while at the same time trying to be productive, those seem like contradictory goals. And most of the time, or a lot of that experience from my own personal experience, there's a sense of FOMO sometimes when you're doing one and not the other, and vice versa. And so this allows a much more organic process to experience El Salvador.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, what about this show? What's the direction of this show going to be?
In general or today?
Oh no, in general. The Build in El Salvador show. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, 4 or 5 days a week, we're going to do our best to live stream at least 4 days a week. It's going to be a podcast. It's going to be a YouTube channel. I mean, until we get banned on YouTube, I feel like YouTube's not going to last very long with the stuff we want to talk about. But also maybe that adds parameters. Maybe it's good to have a container, like constraints. Like, okay, we don't talk about Clown World too much because we'll get banned on YouTube.
Yeah.
And maybe the subject matter might be more important. Or maybe that becomes another outlet. But if you look at our second episode, which we're going to put on the podcast feed, you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, and it's in the name too, right? So we want to focus on entrepreneurship, building. We want to focus on El Salvador. We want to focus on also a lot of the stories of people that have made the journey over here. We've heard some remarkable stories, and so to have guests on and tell their experience, I think, is something that we want to focus on as well. And then just the ideas of personal sovereignty, taking responsibility for your own life, and crafting your own reality, right? Setting intentions and goals, and actually taking the necessary actions to do them. What that's like, what techniques you can use, just the mindsets that you need to develop. I think all of that's going to be kind of the areas of focus that this show, that the show talks about. Yeah,
I mean, it's in our name, Sovereignty Studios. That's definitely our underlying focus and mission with everything is, we talk about the sovereign individual thesis and this and that, and how El Salvador is definitely a nation that is acting upon that idea that the sovereign individual can take their wealth, their livelihood, whatever, anywhere to jurisdictions that will treat them better than their current jurisdiction or one that they want to leave. And El Salvador seems to be a place where that can actually happen. So to be building in El Salvador as Sovereignty Studios, yes, that's definitely what we share as a mission here, is to create kind of like a breeding ground, if you will, for sovereign individuals, because that is, I believe, the future.
Yeah. That's actually a good transition to sovereigntystudios.com, right? Where if you go there, you can sign up for our newsletter, right? And you can also sign up for our community. And that's what I want to talk about more, is that this idea of sovereign individuals coming together. So I forgot how to say this, but the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. So the basic idea is that we all work better together when we collaborate. And so we created a community to start that off, and we're going to see how that goes. But the basic idea is that there's a lot of interest here in El Salvador. It's kind of like the first domino to fall in the sovereign individual thesis, right? Where you literally had Bukele, in the Miss Universe pageant, going on stage and saying, if you're a builder, right? Or, come to El Salvador. We're looking for the best and brightest minds to come down here and help us build the future, right? He made that call out. And I feel like, just little tribes of sovereign individuals are going to start sprouting up, first in El Salvador, but then also around the world, because, I feel like this is an idea whose time has come. Like, hey, let's have, governments and jurisdictions that enact policies that actually promote human flourishing, right? Who would have thought that that's such a revolutionary idea?
It's crazy. My newsletter went out this morning, and I was like, why we just moved to El Salvador, and I explained why. And there's a line in there saying, like, it really appears to me that the government right now here cares about its people. Imagine that. Yeah. Like, how is that such a crazy concept that the people in charge actually care about the well-being of the people? And what we talked about, like, I think our first episode is, living a more value-aligned life. Like, if we're going to pay taxes somewhere, right, let's do it in a jurisdiction where we know it's not going to endless wars. Where we know it's actually going to improve the livelihoods of people. And this feels like such a simple thing that we don't really stop and think about so much when we're just in our day-to-day in our home country or whatever it is like, we have a lot more agency in how we live our lives, where we live our lives. And essentially, when it comes down to money, it's our life force. Everything we put into what we do is to earn money, essentially, and then we spend it, we do things with it. But at a deep level, like, that's a big deal. Like, where you're putting that money, where it's going, even paying taxes, like, that reflects at the end of the day on you, on your values, on who we are as individuals.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that is going to get brought up over and over again, and it's right, living a life that's more in alignment with who you are as an individual. And like, the saying is, right, when you're a fish in water, you don't notice the water, and it's kind of like what you alluded to.
Yeah.
And it's not until you come over here. I had a couple buddies come over here, and we were walking around, and it was like just at the beginning of June, right? And so it's like, you could just see all the hysteria on Twitter about Pride Month and how, there's just like, I don't know, degenerate culture coming after the kids over there in the United States. But as we were walking around downtown and basically everywhere, the malls, you didn't feel any of that. And that's what I noticed. I was like, hold up, man, they're all going crazy over Pride Month. We haven't even noticed anything over here in that form. Like, there's no like agenda over here to subvert your subconscious with I don't know, gay propaganda, right? It's just like everyone just lives their life, and there's like a normal society, right? Such a big difference, and you don't notice it until you're out of that.
Yeah, I mean, we banned from YouTube already. No, yeah, well, along those same lines, though, is like there's still a lot of like propaganda here as far as like billboards, right? We don't stop fish in the water, right? We don't notice like billboards are an everyday part of our life. They just drill into you these logos, these colors, these lights, like, hey, consume this, it'll feel good. Hey, this and that, like, and that's everywhere, and that is still here. I mean, for now. But I just wanted to bring that up, that it's not just like these new propaganda techniques that are coming on the scene elsewhere. It's like,
yeah, I think, well, that's what I mean, though. It's what I'm trying to say is that advertising is always going to exist, and they're going to use all types of ways to get your attention, but it's not like a nefarious agenda that's being advertised to you over here, or you're getting bombarded by it.
I don't know, that Coca-Cola logo, like, they give little shop owners, like small shops, like a free sign if it has the Pepsi or Coke logo on it, and then those colors are meant to, I wouldn't call it like, I mean, I don't know if nefarious is that far off, because these are poisons.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. My point is that I think it's the whole Pride Month and the agenda that's attached to that, right? I think it's just a little bit more tangible as far as like being able to recognize that's nefarious. I mean, a lot of people enjoy Coke and Pepsi, and so it's
well, and these days it's beyond just like pride or like your sexual orientation. It goes it's crazy. Like to me, it's an agenda to obscure truth. Yeah. Like there is no truth. You have to get truth from the state. Yeah. We feed it to you. Because when you can't define a woman, for example, like then what the hell? We have no truth as a society. Mm-hmm. And we have to agree on certain truths. Like argue all you want if something's objective or not. But we have to be able to agree on certain things. Like is the sky blue or not? And if we can't agree on basic things like what's a man, what's a woman, how do you make a baby, then like you have no foundation for a society, and that's how totalitarian powers take over.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, the way we got into this was just talking about how when you're here, right?
Oh yeah. All fired up now. We're like,
I wanted to steer away from that conversation because we can get into the whole wokeism thing. But I guess my point is that it's a breath of fresh air to be here, and I don't think you realize it until you're out of the country, out of the United States. And so, yeah. It's one of those things, like when we talk about kind of what brought us here to El Salvador, I was reluctant at first. I don't know if you remember, but you were like, hey, why don't we meet in El Salvador? And this is because we had been working remotely and it was like time to meet. Yeah. And we were looking for a mutual spot, and you were like, well, why not El Salvador? And I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if there's anything there for me, and like I don't know if I want to do this whole trip in a foreign country.
And then you became Mr. El Salvador.
But that's what I'm saying. But it wasn't until I came here and we learned about the country firsthand from actually interviewing business owners and the locals over here, and the transformation that has occurred. It's like, I don't think we were even aware of just how drastic the change happened. Like we heard like, yeah, Bukele got rid of the gangs, but it's not.
We'll have no idea.
Yeah. But when we came here and actually mingled with the local culture and got a good feel of what El Salvador is and who the people are, I was like, oh wait, there's magic here. That's what it felt like. I was like, man, there's something going on here, and I just got to come back. Like, I got to come back. Like a 10-day trip is not enough. I got to come back. And so, yeah, it's not until you kind of get out of your environment that you recognize, for a lot of people, I'm not saying probably some people live in some very very beautiful places with a life that they want. But for those people that are kind of swimming in the toxic soup of Western culture and where it's headed, it's not until you get out of it and realize how, realize just, how far it's gone downhill until you see something else.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, and that's kind of across the board. I mean, I did a lot of traveling until the COVID stuff, and I'll admit there were some really beautiful places. I've been to I've seen some awesome stuff. But since then, I've basically been in the States and Argentina. And Argentina, I've said for years, is like a fast forward of the US if things continue the way, like between the money printing and the socialism taking over for 60 years. Maybe it's on the reverse now, hopefully. But it's in both cases, it's just kind of sad. Because Argentina used to be the richest country in the world, right? And I mean, the U.S. too, maybe it still is. But I remember the U.S. I grew up in versus the U.S. now. And it just makes me sad, like my hometown and what's become of it in a lot of ways. It's like, man, it's a bummer. It's still a good life. Don't get me wrong. It's still okay. It's not like it's unsafe to walk around, although in some places it is. But just seeing how it's gone, and then, like I said, looking at Argentina as a model, like this is probably where it's going. I'd rather find somewhere else for my kids. And this seems to be the place with the highest trajectory outlook, however you put that.
Cool. Well, you know what, you're here now, so let's talk about the first week or so of you being here. So you've been making a lot of videos.
10 days, right? 10 videos, 11 days. Yeah.
So first of all, what's that journey been like as far as creating content over here? And then let's talk about some of the challenges that you faced along the way as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could both talk about that journey because, you've been building your brand for the last few months about, videos in El Salvador, basically. I find it really fascinating how interested everyone is in it. Like, just the fact that a couple of these videos, I'm not even really showing any life or anything. I'm just talking about El Salvador, and like 4 minutes long, and people are watching it and commenting on it, and it's amazing. I'm grateful, but it's just fascinating that there is this intrigue about El Salvador right now, where I can put together just like I don't know, maybe it's also the sign of the times where people like more raw, authentic video and not polished stuff. Mm-hmm. But I can just put together a video in the evening with some very basic production quality, and people are stoked because I think people are really craving a perspective on what's going on here. But then even Salvadorians are really liking it because they're interested in what we think, and so far everyone is very welcoming. In my head, I've got this insecurity, I guess, where people are like, get out of here. We don't want you here, like, to take over our whole country. And maybe in some future we do that, maybe not. But like, if enough people flock here, I say it on my videos, and I'll say it again, like, there could be a serious threat to their culture, like to the way they live here. It's already happening with industry and development.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not answering the question. But yeah, so everyone loves the videos. Everyone loves the content. The challenges I've been going through, that is one of the challenges though, is because I feel like I'm coming here and I don't want to feel like an outsider. Mm-hmm. I want to feel like I'm part of it. I want to feel like, when we took that first trip and we were mingling, we were making content, right? Like, I feel like that's the most interactions I've had with the real culture here since in all the other trips. Yeah. Like, I've been more going to Bitcoin meetups and stuff since then.
Well, I think that's all going to change.
Yeah. Now that we're here and we can actually.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting. But here's the thing. The people that are coming here, from what I heard, are El Salvadorans, so expats that left the country to go to the United States because of the Civil War and the gang violence that occurred here over the decades. And now they're realizing El Salvador is safe once again, and that they can come and, have a place in their home country amongst their people. And so I think the number was that Bukele stated was like 500,000 El Salvadorans from the United States or from around the world are coming back to, purchase property. And that's one of the reasons that they're having a boom right now, right?
It's beautiful.
It's not a bubble, it's a boom, just because of the influx of people that are coming in. And this is like real interest in the country. It's not speculation. That's what makes it a boom and not a bubble.
And they're bringing in money from the United States that they've been making for 20, 30 years too.
And listen, you go around here, I don't see a lot of white people. I see Salvadorans, right? Like, it's not like, if anyone thinks that this is a gringo takeover over here, they're mistaken. It's like, it's a very much, I would say, how do you call that? When the society is just pretty much El Salvadoran, like, right?
Homogenous,
yeah. Similar to Japan, right? You go to Japan, it's all Japanese people. It's like very little foreigner influence. But that's right now. I don't know how that changes.
Well, that's why I say it. I've seen other places where that changes, fast, or with enough tourism, with enough other cultures come in, and it changes everything. I mean, you could argue that's happening in the United States, Europe, stuff right now too, for different reasons,
but
different reasons.
They're just opening the floodgates.
Yeah,
right? Like, they're like, and not only that, but they're shipping them in. Like, they're literally like, hey, basically with a big arrow and a big sign that says, hey, jump on this bus. We're gonna bring you into Europe. We're gonna bring you to Ireland. We're gonna bring you into the United States. For whatever reason. But even I guess the program that Bukele put together to bring in like 5,000 of the brightest minds, right? It has a limit, 5,000, right? Like,
it's not that many.
Exactly. When you look at it in conjunction with the population here in El Salvador, it's just a fraction, right? And so this idea of some type of takeover, it doesn't concern me at all. At this moment, just because when I look around, I just see prosperous El Salvadoran people,
And the other thing is, I guess, like, as Bitcoiners, whatever, people in the Bitcoin culture and the Bitcoin filter bubble on Twitter, as you see all this, you think from abroad, like, oh wow, there's so many white people moving there, there's so many Bitcoiners moving there, and you get here and you're like, oh wow, it's really not that big of a community. Like,
did you see the farmers market?
Yeah, it's a pretty small farm, and now it's in El Zonte, that's at Bitcoin Beach, and that is the meetup, right? Every 2 weeks in the sun, and it's really not that big.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we have this, I guess that's just whatever, early adopters of Bitcoin or whatever, we just have this exaggerated notion that everyone understands that they need to escape, the US and Europe, and El Salvador is the one place. Like, no, I don't think that many people are really thinking about it.
It's just, there's a lot online, there's just a lot of publicity and a lot of chatter. And then people come here and they post about their visit here. So Tucker was here, and Donald Trump Jr. was here. So like, El Salvador is making headlines around the world. And so people could probably have this impression that it's like, oh man, basically all these Bitcoiners and all these expats are just taking over the country. But I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And then into our topic of conversation is, I think there's a reason too. A lot of people might come visit and not decide to live here, and that's because it's it's Central America, and it still comes with Central America, and there's aspects of that are not always easy or comfortable for someone coming from.
Well, listen, there's just inconveniences that you have to deal with.
It's traveling. You're in a new place.
Yeah,
and things are just different.
Yeah, things are different. Like and. There's cultural changes, the weather, how things operate, how things run, just the daily customs, stuff like that you got to get used to. Some people have a harder time with it than others. I'm from Miami, so very Latin-centric culture over there. And then not only that, but my family's from Honduras. So for me, it's an easy adjustment. But
you're able to make a U-turn, at the next stoplight in Miami. Here you have to drive to the next roundabout.
Yeah, so what Jordan's referring to here is that if you miss a turn here, it's a very unforgiving experience, because you have to basically find a roundabout to go back the other way, and then find another roundabout to just get to where you were. And so and if there's traffic, that mistake can add like 15, 20, 30 minutes to your day.
Yeah.
So,
and that's my point. It's not it's like people culture. It's just the living. Like that's just how it is here, right?
Yeah.
And
things operate slower here. There's not that I guess go-getter mentality that you'd find pretty much throughout the United States. Like when you want things in the United States, you kind of get them on demand, and over here there's just a little bit more of a process and a little bit more of a wait. And so I don't know how many people are used to that. So in this example, I was talking to somebody who needed his car fixed, right? So he needed a part, and it just took way longer than he expected. And that could be a challenge, especially if you don't have a car, right? And you're waiting for your car to get fixed, and the process isn't immediate, or even in many cases you just don't know when it's going to happen, right? It's like sometime in the future. So that's a challenge that people deal with as well, that I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard mixed stories about things like that, but I guess I don't have anything to talk about it until I experience. I mean, I've been waiting over a week to get my internet installed, but that's corporate. You know what I mean? I can't really attribute that to culture. It's just like it's one of the biggest corporations in Latin America. Is this telecom provider? So it's like they just do things in their own way, transcendent of local culture.
Another challenge, though, and this is I'm bringing up your vlog again, is the rainy season.
Oh man, the clouds! Yeah, the clouds are back. We had like a half day of just sun today, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, I woke up to bright blue skies this morning, and it was really nice. It was a nice change of pace from the rain that we've been having. And apparently, though, this also is not normal. The amount of rain that we're getting now is not normal. But we're in Central America. It's rainy season.
That's just how it is.
And this is the challenges you have to deal with. This is probably a lot different from someone that's coming from a drier climate to then adjust to the rainy season, right? It's like it's a way different way of living life, right? All of a sudden you just can't go outside because it's raining all the time, and there's all the obstacles that come with rain, right? Mudslides over here because it's a very mountainous area. So these are the challenges that one can expect and one can face when they're over here.
Yeah, the other thing about the rain is like we were it was pretty depressing that night, actually. I think that video I posted from that day, and we looked online, so like, oh, what's the weather like at the beach? What's the weather like there? And it all said cloudy. But then we went the next day to the beach, to the farmer's market, and everyone was like, no, it's been fine every day. It just rains at night. It's been sunny. It's been like this. And we're like, oh, that's cool. So there's an escape. Here we are at a different microclimate in the mountains. So yeah, naturally the clouds gravitate here, but all we got to do is drive 30 minutes to the coast and we can see the sun.
Yeah. That's one thing that I always picked up on, that I always noticed, was that the climate is different at the beach. Now it rains at the beach, but it's mainly at night. But during the day, you're gonna get like blue skies to partly cloudy during the rainy season, from what I've noticed. Now there was a tropical storm or a hurricane here.
Yeah, no avoiding that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the weather, the traffic. What other challenges come to mind?
Food, maybe, different
The
diet
food.
for people, stuff like that. But, we're starting to source our local grass-fed beef. I mean, beef back better. Raw
Butter and milk, raw milk. Yeah.
Yeah, and just knowing what just building a routine on what to buy, but you got to become familiar. I think it's just one of the biggest challenges is just becoming familiar, and you have to be cool with going through the learning curves, right? Going through the trial and errors, and just give yourself leeway and set your mind to already understand that not everything is going to go perfect, especially when you're here. We talked to a lot of people like that, actually said, hey, yeah, it was a lot harder than we thought moving over here, but you got to give yourself time. So
yeah, and don't expect the first situation you come up with to be the end all be all, right? It's like we hear of people just wanting to buy a house to move down here, and we're like, wait a minute, come stay for a few months, a year before you maybe want to jump all into buying a house. Because until you're here for a year, and we haven't been here a year, but until you've really experienced the place, it's a big investment, very immobile asset having real estate. So that's why we're renting, for example.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? I think that we got a good point to talk about the process, even though we've talked about it a little bit, right? So we'll talk about my journey, and Jordan, you can chime in. But basically, I've been coming here over the last 6 months, made I think 5 or 6 trips. I'm going to make one more trip, and that will complete the process. But it depends on where you're at. So obviously, if you're like young Matt and you're in Europe, and it's not as easy as a journey over here. But if you're in the United States, you were in LA, it was a 5-hour flight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, other people, Houston, Texas, and then Miami. It's not that far of a trip, but
was that hour and a half?
Man, let me tell you. One time I took a flight, right? I sat business class for that flight, and it was just a cheap upgrade. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was on. So by the time the plane took off, right? I was in my house in like 2 hours in Miami.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Something like that. 2
You
hours.
were close to the airport though, right? In Miami?
Yeah, I'm 10 minutes from the airport. But
what do they advertise it as? When you book it, it says, how long does it say it's going to be?
Sometimes 2.5 hours, but
oh, really?
I've gone on a 2-hour flight before. I guess depends on the conditions and the wind and the delays and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a quick trip. So, so if you can take multiple trips, maybe my process is something you can emulate. If not, there's plenty of ways to combine different stages that I've kind of laid out here. But so my first stage here was, and again, this was coming here with no intentions and no expectations really. But it was just to take an initial trip to El Salvador. This is where you and I met up, and we were going to make it an adventure as well as shoot content, 7 to 10 days. And what we did was we rented a car and we explored basically El Salvador. We went on adventures, and you know what that did? It gave us an opportunity to fall in love with the country. And so when I tell people, I say, you know what? When you come here, if you can take multiple trips, make your first trip like enjoyable. Give yourself an opportunity to fall in love with the country. Go explore. Go on an adventure. Climb up the volcano. Go to the beach. Stay at the resort. Like, go see the sights, because that's going to give you an opportunity to just kind of fall in love, feel the spark, feel the magic. And that's what happened with me.
And if you have the intention, like I did, I told you, I'm like, I want to go to El Salvador because I want to know if this could be a place to move. And doing all that tourism, seeing things, helps you know, like, okay, cool. If I go live in the city, these are all options for the weekend, for vacations. Like, there's a lot to do. It's a small country, but there's a lot to see here.
Yes. So that's the other part about it, right? It's like you get to see the beauty of El Salvador. And so if you move to the city or something like that, that there's places where you can take a break, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
It's paradise.
Yep.
So then I would say stage 2, right? This is where I was like, okay, something's happening over here in El Salvador. I got to come back here. And so I went home, and I maybe stayed home for 2 weeks. And then I bought a ticket back, and this time it was for a month or around there, 3 weeks to a month. And so I would say the second trip, make it longer, like actually stay put somewhere, right? And be observant, observe the local customs, the culture. Go to some meetups, start meeting people, start making friends, you can do this in your first trip too, but it's basically start living here a little bit and feeling what that's like.
Yeah, I kind of like how we didn't do any Bitcoin gringo stuff the first time.
Yep.
We just went to see things. We went to we didn't even do that much. It was only a week, but like we saw the sites. We stayed in local hotels, I guess maybe 1 or 2 Airbnbs. We went to restaurants and talked to the owners. We did interviews with people at the restaurants, at the lake. Like I guess we met other backpackers at the hostel, right? That was about the extent of our interaction with other foreigners, which I think was really cool. And then that second time that you came, well, then I came for me too, like, then we go to the events and we get to see that. But I feel like there is a risk of falling into a trap if you immediately would just come and hang out with, you know, just the Bitcoiners, this and that, because then you just start forming that bubble of comfort and you just stay there.
Yeah.
And I, you know, that's lessons I carry over from other travels as well. But I like the way we did it.
Yeah, this is what I mean. You know, it was cool because, again, it gave us opportunity to fall in love with the country and the local community. And then when we came back, that's when we got more involved with, you know, the expat community, the Bitcoin community, events, you know, got our first taste of traffic in the city.
Oh,
yeah. And so, I mean, so the second trip was, like I said, 3 weeks to a month. And it's almost like, you know, I was living here a little bit, you know, I was going through the motions every day of what it's like. I was cooking, I wasn't eating out as much, you know, and so you get to see what you have to deal with. I was going shopping at grocery stores. So, you know, it gives you more of an idea of what life is like over here. Right. And now then I went back and I was like, okay, I felt that out. My decision to move here is becoming much more solidified, right? I also, during that trip, because I was observant, I was looking at what opportunities can exist. I don't know if you remember, but we were talking about possibly opening up a restaurant or having some type of bodega,
a health shop. We're still talking about that.
Yeah. So, you know, you start observing, you start seeing where the opportunities are. And so that starts giving you ideas of what you could possibly do over here when you get down to El Salvador, if that's your thing. Right. And then the stage 3 was, you know, my third trip over here. It was starting to establish myself over here, right? Talking to lawyers, looking into getting a bank account, getting my tax ID, my NEET, and looking at real estate. That's when I started looking at real estate, going on real estate tours. And
if you don't mind me interjecting, you also had a really cool opportunity come your way thanks to the content you were putting out in El Salvador, which is why you were talking to lawyers and stuff.
Yeah, so stage 2, which was to come here, be observant, to live out a little of the life over here, the routine. You know, during that time, I was also sharing content, right? It's not like I was just living the mundane life. It was like, you know, you're also having a good time. And so I shared some of that content, and that's, you know, people saw it, and I got someone reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in a business opportunity. And so, yeah, that led to my third trip. And that also helped me solidify my decision to move down here, is the fact that, you know, this opportunity did get presented in my lap, and that opportunity is Nakamoto Express. It was an import company. And so,
is it hiring?
Yeah, it's hiring. So, well, listen, I've gotten Nakamoto Express to, all right, this is a side note. I've gotten Nakamoto Express to a point where I've proved out the concept. I've established the partnerships, and now all that's left is to grow the company and to build a distribution system, right? So I'm looking for somebody to help me do that. Somebody who's entrepreneurial minded, someone who, you know, maybe has experience in logistics as well. That would be helpful. So if that's you and you want to grow this company, I see huge potential for it, right? I think it could be something big. And it's something that's needed. We've already served clients, and, you know, I just need help with it now. So if that sounds like you, send me a DM or reach out to me, SOVMINDSET, so sovmindset@gmail.com. So thanks, Jordan, for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really relevant. Like, and we said this in the first community call, which is why Matthias decided to come. At least come more confidently. And that is, it's hard to believe until you experience it, especially if you're coming from somewhere like the United States, where there's just kind of like a dark cloud of fear surrounding that place. But a lot of stuff will not fall into your lap. A lot of stuff will work out. Things will work out in your favor here, as long as you've got pure intentions. You know, you got a clean like bill of action and skills. Like, and you come like, hey, I want to do this. I want to be part of something. Like, with all the people we've met, like the network we've built, it's happening. Like, things work out here. Like, when you're, I don't have the wording for it right now.
Well, there's a lot of synchronicity that happens here, right? So, and there's a lot of opportunity that occurs over here. And there's a lot of builders that are coming here and a lot of entrepreneurs that have visions. And people, they need people to help them build out those visions, right? And so, if you're young, if you're ambitious, or even if, it doesn't even matter if you're young, scratch that. Just if you're ambitious and you're willing to work hard, man, you're going to find opportunity here 100%.
Find it or create it.
That's true.
But it's just a ripe area for it. It's very fertile.
Yes. And the type of people that are, coming here and looking to, build out their dreams, they're very interesting people. And, I think it's a very unique environment to build in too, because like I said on one of our podcasts, right, like the Silicon Valley kind of effect that's happening over here, right? It's just it feels very collaborative over here, right? And it feels like everybody's willing to help each other out in order to achieve their goals and their dreams.
Yeah, and in the spirit of Sovereignty Studios, I would say, like, if you do come here and you do have these ambitions like that to work with others, make content about it, make videos. Tell the world what you're about, what you're experiencing here. And like, the right people see it. I mean, it's crazy the retweets I've gotten from certain people. I'm like, how did they see this? But like, the magic exists.
Yeah. Okay. So,
your third trip. So going back to it, the last thing we talked about was Nakamoto Express, and that's the opportunity that got presented to me on my second trip. So my third trip was coming to establish myself again, getting a little into the bureaucracy a little bit, looking at the paperwork that's needed to do things, right? This is all interesting stuff that you should go through, right? And you should find the right people to help you out, and start building your professional network that way as well too, right? Start talking to lawyers, start talking to accountants, start talking to just people that know how to navigate all of that stuff. And so now, if you do it this way, the way I've set it up is that you will have seen the tourist side of things, right? You will have seen the community side of things, and you will have gotten to know what it's like to live here a little bit. And then you will have seen some of the bureaucratic side and what it's like to establish yourself here officially in El Salvador. And this gives you a lot of information to then base a decision off of on whether you want to move down here or not, right? Like, you've seen all the different aspects of what it's like to live here in El Salvador, and it's I think that's a healthy amount of information to start making decisions off. And that's by the end of 3 trips, right?
Yeah.
So 3 trips, each one with a different focus, and by then you probably know, do I want to live here or not?
Exactly. Yeah. So and then for me, I just tying up loose ends at home, and also opening up doors over here took a few more trips. And then I will just say that I have a dog, and so I'm leaving that to my last trip, right? Bringing my dog down here is going to be my last trip, because, well, maybe not my last
this
trip.
Is your last trip, and then that's the official move, right?
Yeah, that's,
and you come with your dog.
Well, yeah, basically when I come with my dog, it closes off the move. And the reason for that is just that I wanted to bring my dog here and just have everything situated, similar to you, right?
Bringing the kids.
Yeah,
they're kind of like dogs too. And the wife, but yeah, same thing. I mean, I had less flexibility to come here as many times as you did, or should I say, dogs are kind of like kids, which is why we don't want a dog. we have enough kids. But yeah, so I'm here. I've been here for almost 2 weeks now, waiting, like getting everything ready for them. So by the time they get here, it's livable. We've got everything we need.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see that is, you're the man, bro. You're supposed to take on the brunt of the stress of moving, right? And your wife and kids just should be coming into a happy home.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just
My wife's got to take the brunt of packing, but
well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a move, right? And so everyone has to pull their weight. But for you to come down here and get everything, because they're coming into a new environment, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's stressful in itself. And so for you to take care of everything and get everything set up and ready for them to just relax when they come here, it's a big deal. I mean, last thing you want to do is take this trek from having, from wherever it is that you're at, and then having to work right when you get here, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, so a little bit of my experience there, the third trip, I brought my wife. Was that the third or fourth? I think it was third, but whatever. That trip where we did all the lawyer bureaucracy stuff, we also looked at a lot of rentals, and my wife got to see the things that are more important to her than me, like what food can we get at the grocery store, like what's available here, there. And we just got a lot of those questions answered. And ultimately, for me in that situation, that was the ultimate decision. Okay, she's cool with it. We can make it happen. Boom, let's do it.
Well, yeah. And it was a big deal for me too, right? Because you're having your wife happy, right?
Very important.
It gives Sovereignty Studios a little bit of certainty. And when she said she was in, I was like, okay, cool. We can start, making the moves that we need to make, the investments that we need to make to move forward with our project. Because, so, when, if you come in here and someone else has to make a decision with you, just make sure you show them a good time.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's next up. I mean, the kids have no say in the matter, but the kids are going to be here now. And I just want to give kind of Hormozy style, get some quick wins after you close the deal. Make sure to get some quick wins. I want to take them to the pool. I want to make sure they have a great time in the first week.
Yeah, introduce them to El Salvador with a bang.
Yeah, right. So from the very get-go, they know it's exciting. I mean, my son, he's 4. He saw our videos at the having party at the resort, and he saw all those pools. He's like, "That's El Salvador, Dad." He was telling, "That's a resort, son." But he thinks that's El Salvador.
Awesome. Matt, how many viewers we got?
Yeah, it looks like we have 277.
Is that live?
I don't know if these are the total number of views.
It says it's live.
Consecutive number of views.
Last time we did that and we asked, someone's like, "No, it says on Twitter it's that many people are tuned in right now." So
I think it might be the total number of people who have tuned in, though.
I think so too,
not
but
going down at all. It's always climbing.
If you look at the spaces on the right-hand sidebar, where it shows the audio and video streams, then normally that number would indicate how many people are actually there. But let's wrap it up. So what your 4th and 5th trips, because I think originally this was a 6-trip process, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
The 4th would be start looking at houses and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Start looking around. By this point, you've seen enough of the country to be okay, I think I want to live in that region by the beach or in the mountain or there or the city. Determine where that geographical location is going to be. For us, we wanted to be close to the city because we want to have a podcast studio. We want to do things like that. It's accessible. And I mean, I prefer to be up here because the beach is just so hot. I mean, I love the beach. I'm a beach person at heart, but that coast is hot. And I can get a lot more done. I can focus better when it's not so hot. And here at the house here, we don't even have air conditioning in there, and it stays cool. And the air's fresh outside. Last night it was cold outside. It was great. And then we got a beautiful view of the jungle outside the yard. So for me, that was important, having a view, making sure that I felt like I was in a beautiful place. I don't want to look at the city personally. That's not me. I also don't like living in neighborhoods like this. I prefer a more rural environment. But that easy concession when I have a view like that, and I can drive to the beach pretty quickly, and I don't have to be. We're in the city here, but we're not in the city. We're close enough to be able to go get what we need from Walmart or the grocery store, but we're not feeling like we don't hear traffic all the time. We're not stuck in it every time we go outside.
Yeah, man, this brings me back to the inconveniences of that you just kind of come to realize, because in order to go to the beach, you have to go north in order to go south from where we're at. So it's just one of those things where it'd be nice if like our street out to the main road
just go straight
to the beach. So these are the kind of things that you kind of just have to live with, because it almost takes away the advantage of living here in this particular area, because one of the advantages is that you're so close to the beach. But when you're coming back from the beach,
it's quicker.
Yeah.
It adds 10 minutes if the traffic's not too bad. I mean, if the traffic's bad, it's probably about 10 minutes it would add, as opposed to just being able to turn left.
Yeah, because that roundabout backs up.
It backs up even on a Sunday morning. Yeah, as I noticed.
So
then that would be the next trip. And then the final trip, if it's not the move, it's signing the lease. It's get your internet figured out before you do the move, because I've been waiting a week so far. I might have to wait another week. Like, sign up for that before, so you have the internet people coming to install it.
Maybe what we can do is just do a show on tips, like things we've learned, like just make a whole list of things that we've learned that people should look out for. But one of the things that I did is that I made sure that when I rented, like, I didn't just rent from a company that I don't know how many companies there are that are like renting houses, but also that I sat down and talked to the landlord.
Got to know them. Us too.
Yeah. Got a feel for them, told them what our intentions are, told them, who we are, introduced ourselves, had a good conversation. Because in terms of what you're talking about, my landlord has been a huge help. She's directing me, go, get your internet from this company. Or talk to this person for interior decorating, or talk to this, so in terms of that, they almost acted as a liaison service, right? Like as a consultant for getting established over here in a home.
Well, they want you to be happy.
Yeah.
You're paying the rent.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, they have an incentive to make sure you're happy. Yeah.
Well, plus, I mean, if they can make you happy, like they're doing some modification stuff for you, they know that'll carry over to the next renter or whatever. It'll increase the value.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess my point is that, find a cool landlord if you're renting, right? Someone that you can talk to and that is willing to help you out along the way. And I think it goes pretty far. Definitely.
Don't just go through a liaison like a realtor. It's fine to like use a realtor to find a place, but make sure you get to know that you meet the landlord. It's going to help.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anything else?
I'm running out of juice, but I think we covered the good sequence of events for how to move here, like the stages, the things to keep in mind. That said, we are unveiling our 2-week Build in El Salvador Accelerator. So if you do find yourself as someone that thinks they do want to come down here, but you don't have the availability to take all these different trips, in 2 weeks, we'll essentially support you in finding out most, if not all, of these things, not to mention tap into our network, make content,
go to events, have a good time, see the sites, all of that basically gets streamlined because through our experiences, we've done the hard work, we've done the trial and error, we've done the multiple trips. We know who you need to talk to, right? And also, if you have any, entrepreneurial desires, or you're looking to get information on building your business over here in El Salvador, you have access to Jordan and I during that whole 2 weeks. So
yeah, and building a brand, making content. Like we said earlier, even if you don't have ambitions to start like a business, just putting some videos out there on Twitter, on Instagram, so people get to know you, see you a bit. You'll never know who will show up in your DMs, especially if you're sharing like what you're about, what you like to do, what you're good at. I mean, that's how Matthias is here essentially. Like we were like, yeah, hey, there might be space for you to work with us because we need that. And, put videos out there, start getting some attention, do that while you're here with us, and you'll be meeting people, you'll be getting your name out there. And for all you know, by the end of that 2 weeks, you might have something ready for you, then get you excited to move down here.
So if they're interested in the accelerator program, what do they do?
DM us or email hello@sovereigntystudios.com.
Okay.
I think that's the best way for now. hello@sovereigntystudios.com.
I think that's a good way to close this out. Again, going back and just rehashing some of the stuff that we talked about. This show We're planning on it being a daily show, Monday through Thursday. Maybe it won't be every day. Maybe there'll be some days we have to take off. But that's the idea. We plan on bringing you guests. We plan on making this content relevant to builders, people interested in El Salvador, and sovereign individuals. And yeah, we look forward to the journey. And I guess thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of support we've been receiving is incredible, both individually and collectively as a team here. Like, everyone's been really supportive and really cool, and that keeps us inspired and excited. So thank you.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. You want to say anything, Matt?
Yeah, sure. A couple of thoughts. So, like, if you don't have the funds necessary to take like 6 or 7 trips, don't let that be an excuse. Like, use the power of the internet to get to know people beforehand, and maybe people are in similar fields that you work in, and make it happen. Also, I want to shout out Big Tio here in the chat. He's saying that he's arriving in Salvador this evening and is at the airport. And he was asking before too, like, where's the studio located? Do you want to give like an area or?
Nah, not right now. We don't want to dox ourselves just yet.
Yeah, alright, fair. Yeah, so that's it. Also gotta figure out these gestures in the stream because we had all our like the fireworks going off again.
Sweet.
I kind of like it.
I want to get it under our control.
Okay. Yeah. So right now it's not under our control, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Still figuring things out here, but we're making progress.
Cool. What's up, Big Tio? Thanks for the message. Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet up.
And, you know, one of the things that I want to do is interact live with our audience. So hopefully...
Well, that'll be part of the community.
Yeah. Guys, if you want to join our community. What we do there is first of all, you have access to Jordan and I. That's where we answer questions and all of that stuff. But also... we have a community call, right? A Build in El Salvador community call where you can join, but you got to join our community to have access to it. So
yeah, like every 2 weeks. And, for a time I was calling it a support call, a support group, because I'd go to El Salvador, have a great time. Then within 2 weeks of being back in the States, I'd be like, like, life is tough. Am I going to make it? Are we going to make it? And then I'd go to the call and everyone would talk about it. Pretty much everyone was kind of on the same page as me too. Like, we're doing it, but at the same time, and it just felt like a support group. Like, cool, I'm making this happen, and I felt way better after. So,
yeah, I mean, if you need reinforcement on like kind of the trajectory you've chosen for your life, if that's coming to El Salvador, if that's moving anywhere, to live a life that's more aligned with your values, right? You get on that call and you hear everyone's excitement about what they're doing. It really motivates you and inspires you to keep going.
I meant to say this earlier too when we were explaining a bit about Sovereignty Studios, but the community here that we put together, I think we got a comment earlier today, I forget who said it, but they're like, I've been looking for this, somewhere to go with other sovereign-minded individuals. Like, apparently there's no real communities for something like this, at least with this language. And so it's cool, right? Yeah. Values-driven, people that are aligned in this same kind of walk of life, and we're all in different areas on different pages, but because we all share those values, we can come together and support each other, grow together.
Yeah. So just to I guess close this off about the community is that if you want to join the community, go to sovereigntystudios.com and then you can find the communities tab there, or you go to school.com and
with a K.
Hermosi's platform now, and just type in Sovereignty Studios and you'll be able to find us there.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, man, I think this was great. I think every show we're getting better and better, a little smoother. We'll work out the kinks over the month, but
wait till y'all see our interior deco once this place is snazzed up.
So and this is, in a way, look, I guess we'll wrap up this show eventually, but in a way, this is almost a build in public show. Right? Like,
totally.
Yeah. We are each building our brand. We're building separate companies. We got different projects, different endeavors that we're taking on, and we're sharing the journey live as we build. the good, the bad, the challenges, the triumphs, all of that there's tons of learning lessons to extract from all of that. And so, I aim to bring you those lessons, and hopefully so we can all learn and grow from each other.
Build in El Salvador.
I think Jordan wants to end it. Let's end it. All right.
No, I just felt like the right thing to say.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like, if that's all you got to add, I think he's trying to tell us that.
Build in El Salvador in public.
There we go. Like, if there was an extension, it would be that, right? Yeah. All right, cool. I'm good.
Sign us off. See ya.
Adios, amigos.
Later.